going?
Good. How are you?
I can't complain. It's Friday.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, so I wanted to have you on here because you've killed some good deer. You got one down already this year, and you're hunting a really large one also. So, can you give me a quick little about me?
Well, my name's Derrick. Me and you met discussing some property on Facebook and that kind of thing, looking at a hunting lease. I've been into bow hunting a little over 20 years. I started out as a kid, and it's just kind of been a hobby that stuck with me, and it's turned into a passion. Outside of kids and work, I mean, I eat, breathe, sleep, deer hunting, bow hunting. It's just something that I've taken to, and I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world.
Yeah, and I think that's how we kind of connected, was on that property, because the property, I think we both saw, had like some trophy potential in it, and then, once like-minded individuals get together, you can kind of really see when someone's like the real deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, when you get around individuals that think the same as you, and they possess the same mentality as you do with the thrive for bow hunting and chasing whitetail, I mean, it's like kids reunited.
Yeah.
So,
yep. So I wanted to get into your velvet hunt this year.
All right.
So I guess just walk me through the process of if you had any history with that deer, and kind of like what your setup was going into the season, and just kind of like your mentality of everything going on.
Well, let's start from the beginning on the velvet hunt weekend, because it was a roller coaster. I've got a couple deer that I've been watching, and we knew going into the weekend that it was going to be extremely hot, like record-setting temperatures. And Friday rolled around, and I think the heat index was like 114. I went in on a deer that I had trail camera pictures of. He was there just about every afternoon. Had high hopes of going in and killing him.
And when did you put your trail cameras out to start locating this deer? And was this the first year you had with him? And this is a piece of private you have access to?
This is the third year that I've had this farm, and
okay.
I don't recognize this deer from last year, but that's not to say that he's not one of the smaller deer that I had that just didn't blow up.
Right. Okay.
I put cameras out on this property the end of June, and I'm running all cell cameras, the Reveal 2.0s.
Okay.
I've tried to leave the farm alone. I put the cameras in places that I thought were going to be great spots for them to hang. So went in there, done my due diligence with that, got out, and the deer started showing up, and I just started piecing it together and figuring out where he was coming from, what he was doing, looking at Onyx, trying to figure out where he was bedding at. And the deer starts showing up on a regular basis every afternoon. He's not a morning deer on camera. That's not to say he's not in the area. But I go in there, I hang my set, which I've started doing the mobile thing this year. I started last year, but I really dove into it this year and said that was all I was going to do. I wasn't going to hang any sets and leave them. I was solely going to take my set in with me, hang it, and when I leave, take it down, take it back out with me.
Okay, so you're just doing hanging hunts.
I picked up a Lone Wolf Custom Gear .75, and I'm running that setup this year. And I slipped into this area that this deer is coming to a water source on, and it's scorching hot. After I get my stand on the tree, I'm trying everything I can not to throw up. It's so hot.
Right.
I'm a nervous wreck because I know the deer is in the area. I'm trying not to blow anything out. I'm trying not to stink it up, but I mean, when it's a heat index of 114, you're going to sweat.
What's kind of the breakdown layout of the farm you're hunting? Because there's ag on it from the pictures you've showed me. And
Yeah,
is there a pretty big wood section too?
there's probably 90% ag, and then the other 10% is uh, timber.
Mm,
A couple years ago, they did log half the timber, so it's real thick in portions of it.
okay.
Um, it's not really got any major terrain features on it as far as elevation. There's one ridge that runs the property that adjoins me, and it's all combined together and touches with the woods. The neighbor's side, they didn't log it, but our side, they decided to log it. So, I mean, the deer have the bedding on me more so than they do on them.
Okay. So they're bedding in that clear cut. How long ago was that clear cut, you said?
It was done 3 years ago.
Oh, okay. So that's like perfect amount of time. So that should be thick and nasty in there, huh?
Yeah, with every rain that we've had this year, it's thicker than it's ever been.
Okay. Cool. That's set up pretty good then.
And last year, I tried to stay out of there. I did step in 50 to 75 yards, just checking some things out, looking at some different features of it, some old logging roads, checking for scrapes. But I've tried to leave that alone. That way the deer are not pressured in their bed.
Right. Yeah.
And entry and exit is key when hunting a deer. And with this deer that I'm hunting, I'm entering on the north end of this property in a drainage ditch in the middle of this field and taking a sprayer trail that runs across this bean field and just following it until I get to this area that I'm hunting. And it's a wood lot that sits out in the middle of this field.
Okay.
And I just navigate my way up around it and slip in. And the deer are bedded across the field in the timber, and there is a watering hole that's in between where I'm hanging and where they're bedding, and it's within bow range.
Okay. And is your camera set up at the same spot that you're hunting?
So I have a couple cameras along the edge of the field in different spots that they come out, but I also have a camera on the water hole itself.
Okay.
So it's almost like something that you see out west with these guys go on antelope hunts or mule deer that have watering holes. They hang a camera that way they can actually gain intel just off the watering hole.
Yeah, I've heard of a lot of guys having a lot more success off of water holes. I never actually see any deer do any actual physical drinking myself, but you must see it a lot then, huh?
Well, this is the only water hole around this area. So, I mean, with it being so hot, they're drawn to it just so they have the water.
Okay, so that's like their only main water source right there.
Yeah, that's their only main water source right there within probably a mile, I would say.
Okay. Cool. So you're slipping in there through a drainage ditch. You get to the cut in the woods, and then you're hanging in a hunt. You're putting your lone wolf custom gear up in a tree right there, and then that's kind of overlooking the water hole. Then.
Yeah, it's overlooking the water hole, and it's overlooking the bean field.
Mm-hmm. And
so I'm able to glass majority of the bean field where these deer are filtering out to.
Okay.
And play in the wind, and it works out because the deer are not bedded near that spot that I'm hanging, so I'm not interfering with them being on bed.
Okay. So you went in there the first night of the velvet hunt then?
I did. I went in, hung my set. Seen a lot of deer late in the afternoon when it started cooling off and the sun was going down. The deer that I was after, he come in, and I will preach this to anybody going forward. If you are serious about hunting and you take it to heart, practice and make sure that your setup is everything that it can do.
Yeah.
because this year is the first time in 20 years that I have not devoted as much time as what I normally do. And I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, because I have kids, I have a family, I have a job. Like, I have stuff to do just like everybody else.
Right.
And I stepped away from doing a lot of that stuff because I had less free time and was tending to other things with my kids and family and work. So I got my bow set up to what I thought was going to do the job.
Okay.
But I didn't go above and beyond at seeing the max capabilities of my bow and what it could do. So I'm running a 3-pin housing on a Excel Achieve XP sight, and it has a sight tape on it.
Right. Yep.
Well, I'm running that sight, so I have a runner pin, and I didn't take the time to set up my runner pin correctly. And I thought I could do just fine with the 3 pins that I had and not have to worry with the housing being adjustable and running a tape. So y'all probably know where this is going, but the night did not end well for me.
Yeah.
The deer come in.
What time did you see him?
He come off the ridge that he was bedded on, that I thought he was bedded on to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
I ranged him. He was inside of 100. He starts feeding on the beans. He's working his way towards me. I'm ranging him every 15, 20 yards, and he's gaining. He's at 65. He's at 50. He gets to 45, and I'm like, okay, it's fixing to be game time. Well, I ranged him at 42, and I knew my pin was set for 40, my 3rd pin. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, okay, I'll just add a little elevation. I'm not going to adjust the sight for 2 yards. I'll just add a little elevation. Draw back. I stop the deer. He's broadside, not a care in the world. He doesn't know what's about to happen. And I break a shot, and the shot felt great. But as I released, I watched the arrow, and it went right underneath him. At that moment, my heart was in my stomach.
Yeah, I bet.
I mean, I was just sick. I had done everything right by getting in on this deer without bumping him. I had him broadside. I had a wide open shot. I mean, I couldn't have asked for a better afternoon, other than it being 114 degrees.
So what did he do after the shot? Did he stick around?
So when I shot, he ended up running about 15, 20 yards, turned around and looking, and just had that look of, what was that? I had no clue what happened.
Yeah.
He didn't blow out of the field. He just turned around and looked. So I knock another arrow, and by the time I knock another arrow, he's done got skittish, and he ends up just running back to the tree line, and he cuts around the tree line and rounds the field edge and goes back up in the bed where he come from.
Mm.
So at this point, like, I just feel like a complete idiot.
Right.
I feel like I've done something wrong, and I don't know what. So I go home. All this stuff's on my mind. I'm like, I'm just going to let it go. I'm going to get up in the morning. We're going to work through the bow. We're going to see what's wrong with it. And we'll just start all over tomorrow.
Right.
Tomorrow's a new day.
Yep.
But you hold on to that stuff, and you keep it in your mind. The next opportunity you're going to get another deer, you're going to second guess yourself. And
Right.
it's just going to keep happening.
Yeah.
So I get up the next morning. I shoot my bow. I live in a subdivision, so it's kind of tight-knit with houses around me. So I'm limited to how far I can shoot and what I feel comfortable shooting, because of neighbors' kids and neighbors walking around their houses, and I don't want them to chew me out for shooting towards their house. So
yeah, and shit does happen,
walk out,
you know. I mean,
yeah, I mean, stuff happens, accidents happen, and I don't want that to happen. I don't know if I could live with myself if an accident like that happened.
Or even just an arrow coming in someone's living room or something.
Yeah, either stick it in somebody's back window or in their privacy fence. I mean, it wouldn't be a good day.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I don't think the HOA would like that too well.
Yeah.
So I get up and I get my bow and I go outside and just check my pins, check my 20, my 30, and I shoot 40. Well, 40 shoots fine to my thoughts. And, I back up and I shoot 42 and it drops way low. So I'm like, okay, my bow's slowing down a little bit more than what I thought it was, and my arrow's falling off.
And what's your what are you shooting, and what's your draw length?
I'm shooting a Bowtech SS34 this year. Okay. I made the switch from Matthews this year and just thought I would try something else.
Yeah, 34 should be a pretty stable bow. When I started shooting
bows, Bowtech was what I went with. I mean, that was the first bow that I had, the first very nice bow. Mm-hmm. So going back to them, it kind of felt home, I guess you could say. I mean, it's just picking up something new and liking it and being comfortable with it. It goes a long way.
Yeah.
But
and then I guess what's your arrow weight and draw length?
I think I'll say it's like 400. I think 425.
Okay.
I'm shooting the Gold Tip Pro Hunter 340s, fletched with the TAC 2.75 drivers.
And you're
shooting 100 grains on the front.
You shooting 60 pounds, 70 pounds?
I'm shooting 72.
Okay. So your arrow should be moving pretty good.
Yeah, I think they're right at like 295, 296.
Okay. Yeah, so that's pretty fast. Okay, so you back up to 42, and you do...
Back up to 42, and it drops out probably 5 inches.
And that's with you adjusting the slider down to 42?
Yeah, I had adjusted down on the slider to 42, and it's still shooting low. It's not as bad as me shooting with an added elevation with it set on 40, but it's still low.
Right.
So, no, I made a little adjustment in my pin, and it added just a hair bit of elevation on my shot at 40. But at 42, dialed to 42, I mean, it was on. So at that point, I left it.
Yeah.
Well, going into the second day, the wind was wrong to go back to that spot. And I just decided to go to another part of the farm. I had cameras over there. I had different deer in that area of the farm. I said, we'll just go in here and we'll see what we see.
And wasn't that the day I think I was texting with you? Wasn't there a car or something in that spot too or something?
Yeah, the landowner had contacted me and was questioning a truck that showed up on the farm because I had an instance the week prior. There was a party that got thrown in the field that wasn't supposed to happen, and there was a lot of crop damage that occurred, and there were several kids that got in trouble for this party.
Okay.
So the landowner
wasn't like poachers
already,
or hunters or anything. It was just kids out partying the soybeans.
Yeah, it was kids throwing a field party and drinking a little bit of beer and alcohol. I mean, just kids being kids.
Yeah. Okay.
But granted, they could have went about things a lot differently than damaging crops, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
Their parents will have to be the ones to deal with that and themselves.
Yeah.
So at this point, the landowner's already on the edge because the crop damage and the partying and random vehicles showing up in the middle of the night. And they had contacted me about a truck that was on the property. And funny story, one of the other guys that shares the property with me that hunts a far side of it, he stays over there to himself. He doesn't really go anywhere else. He had drove one of his other vehicles that nobody recognized and didn't tell anybody. So I'm over here on Facebook asking if anybody in the county that we hunt in knows this vehicle. And
yeah.
I've talked to a buddy of mine that works for the sheriff's department. I've got him running tags and
Yeah. You're out trying to catch a poacher, and it's just the other guy.
yeah, I'm just trying to figure out what's going on, because when I first acquired this property, I had a lot of issues with people saying they had permission that really didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And I've worked hard to maintain the property to keep that away.
Yeah, because it looks like a great property.
It really is. You know, it doesn't have a whole lot of timber on it, but it has timber on the outside edges of it and its surrounding.
Mm-hmm.
And there are little islands scattered here, there, and everywhere that anywhere from 5 acres to 20 acres. And the deer they just bounce around. So you never know, during the rut, you may see a deer one day on one side of the farm, and then the next day he's clear across the other side.
Yeah.
But ended up getting a hold of the other guy and asked him if he recognized the truck. He's like, yeah, that's my truck. I'm like, oh. Well, I told him the story, and he's like, oh, okay, now it makes sense why everybody's wanting to know what I'm driving and
yeah,
your Facebook post and all that. So we got a laugh out of that and went on about the day, and I ended up going over to this other spot. I've had several deer hanging out in this block of timber that it's more or less a funnel.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of thick bedding on the end of it, on the south end, and they funnel out through the middle of it to the north end, and they go into a bean field. We've got a lot of beans out there this year. It's not that much corn,
mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, I'm not complaining about that. I would rather hunt beans than corn any day.
Okay.
The deer just seem to like them more.
Yeah.
My buddy let me borrow his e-bike that night. He didn't go, so all the stuff was on the trailer, and I rode his e-bike in, and you know, that's the first time I'd ever rode an e-bike into a set.
Yeah, how'd you like it?
I thought I was riding a Cadillac.
Yeah, it's nice, huh?
Not having to walk, not sweating.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nice.
Yeah.
So I roll in on this e-bike. I already knew the area because of the wind where I was going to go. So I slip in, drop the e-bike off into some thick stuff. That way it's out of sight, out of mind. Slide in, play the wind, hop up in the tree, get settled in. Well, as I'm sitting there, I start hearing footsteps behind me. I'm like, okay, here we go. We're going to start the afternoon off right. Well, I've got a doe that comes in, and she comes in straight downwind and never picks me off. I'm only like 14, 15 foot up in a tree.
Right.
And I'm thinking, this deer is about to blow me out of here. Me and her have a staring contest for probably 5 minutes, and she ends up working from my right side. I've got a northwest wind, and it's blowing straight to her. And she's on my right-hand side looking dead square at me, ends up circling all the way around in front of me, and never once stomps her feet, never blows at me, ends up working over to the mineral. I'm like, okay, we may get by with this.
Right.
So afternoon progresses. I see a buck off behind me over my left shoulder, back in the thick bedding. He never did get close enough to get a shot off on him, but I could tell he was a decent deer. I think he was one of the younger nines that I've got pictures of.
Mm-hmm.
And probably 30 minutes before dark, I look back over my left shoulder again, and I've got 2 bucks working out of the bedding coming through this funnel into the open on the north end of this woodlot, and they're working their way towards the bean field.
Oh, okay.
I can tell the back deer is a real heavy mass, tall deer, and I recognized him from the pictures I had of him. Well, they're coming through the timber, and they're kind of trotting. I mean, there had been a rain front that come through probably 30, 45 minutes prior, and I guess that really got them up on their feet, and they were antsy to get out to the bean field. And when they come through, they were at 30 yards. And I managed to grab my bow off the hanger and come to full draw. And I got him stopped. Well, when he stopped behind a tree. And all I could see is his neck up. His whole vital and body section's behind the tree. So I'm just standing there at full draw, waiting on this deer to step out. He's at 30 yards, chip shot. And as soon as he steps out, I broke the shot, and I could tell it was a good hit. He started dozing with his front shoulder, and he probably didn't go, I'd say, 35, 40 yards at most, and piled up.
So how long was it by the time you were in the stand until you shot the deer?
I think I got in the stand probably about 3 o'clock, and I shot that deer, I'd say somewhere around 6:30.
Okay. So
I normally try to get in the tree at anywhere from 3 o'clock to no later than 4, just depending on what time of year it is, the weather. If it's hot, the last hour of the afternoon is 9 times out of 10 my best hour.
Yeah.
So I don't want to be late, but I don't want to be so early that I have to sit there and just stink up the area more and more by waiting.
Yeah. And you think they got on their feet early that night because of the rain? You think the rain cooled?
Yeah, we had a big temperature drop because of that rain. I mean, it probably dropped 15 degrees.
Well,
which after hunting Friday, I was not complaining about that one bit.
Yeah, but that's pretty amazing that you were kind of hunting this deer down at a different spot on the farm, and then it wasn't working out for the wind, so then you just called an audible and went to the other section, and he ended up coming 30 yards right in front of your stand like that.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to set out hunting second afternoon of the velvet hunt. I mean, Tennessee's you get 2 tags for bucks.
Right.
So at that point, I mean, you can't just be a couch potato and sit at home because you missed and the wind's wrong for that one spot. I mean, if you got 2 tags, you've got to have more options. Yeah. So I try to narrow down every deer on the farm. I run multiple cameras all over the farm that we have, and
right.
I can probably tell you every buck that's out there. Whether he be a scrub buck or whether he be a mature shooter.
Now, what I didn't realize about the velvet hunt is I didn't know that Tennessee is 2 bucks. I didn't know you could kill them both during the velvet season if you wanted to.
Yeah, so there was some questions that arose to that. And I actually contacted the game warden when the velvet hunt started, and I asked him, I said, are you allowed to kill both of your bucks on that weekend? And they told me, yes, you are. You just have to abide by the normal laws of killing 1 per day. Yeah, because
I think that might have been your post or something, or I might have saw someone question something you said, or I don't know. I thought I saw someone say something online, and then I was like, can you do that? And I went out, and it's right there in black and white that, yeah.
Yeah, it was probably when I posted about going the 3rd day, after I'd already killed that deer on the 2nd day.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
How I was hunting because they thought you could only kill 1 buck and so forth.
So did you actually see the deer pile up then from your stand?
I didn't see him, but I heard him. And when I got down, I knew roughly where he was, and I walked over there and I found blood and found my arrow and walked up to him, and he was exactly where I thought he was. He never made it out of the woods. Like I said, he only went about 35, 40 yards.
He's a huge buck. He's beautiful.
You know, if his tines would have been a little bit longer, he would have been really, really good. I mean, he's still a really good deer. I'm not opposed to killing deer of that caliber. I mean, I think we scored him at 127.5, but he carried his mass on his beams all the way out. I think his smallest mass measurement was right at 4 inches, I think.
So
I mean, he just lacked in in tine length on his G1s and G2s, and
Yeah.
he ended up having 9 scoreable points. But I mean, he was still a good deer.
Yeah. Scoring is so bizarre because there's some deer that you think won't score that well, and then they score really high, and there's other deer that are huge that don't score that high at all.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I mean, the higher the score, the cooler it is and all that. But don't ever get so involved in hunting to where it's all about the score, because it's not.
Yeah.
Go out there and shoot the deer that you want to shoot, and shoot mature deer. I mean, if you want to shoot small deer, then that's up to you. But just know in doing that, that prevents them from growing into being more mature, bigger deer.
Right.
And it also goes as far as you taking a young deer out of the herd, he's not going to reproduce that year.
Mm-hmm.
So later on down the road, you're not going to have the genetics off that deer because he wasn't given ample time to reproduce because you shot it.
So was this your first velvet deer? Have you shot velvet
This
buck before?
So last year I killed one on the second day. And the year prior, I think I killed one on the opening day.
Okay, so this is your third velvet deer then. Huh?
This is actually, I killed one in Kentucky in 2019. So one in Kentucky in 2019, I killed one in 2020, and I didn't kill one in 2021,
mm-hmm.
but I killed one in 22. So this was my fourth.
Oh, nice. So you've got the down then. I'm assuming that. Are you getting them mounted?
Yeah. If I'm going to shoot a deer, I'm going to pay the deer due diligence and get him mounted.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just kind of the way I look at it.
Yeah.
If I'm going to kill one, he's going to have to be mount worthy.
So what kind of precautions and stuff did you have to do? Like, I guess just field dressing the deer and just preserving the velvet, getting him out of the field and to the taxidermist, because I've never had to deal with that.
So with the velvet, you got to be gentle around his antlers because you can rip it,
mm-hmm.
and you can cause it damage. You just have to either have a firm grip on it and have it low to his base. That way your hands aren't sliding around.
Right.
Or you can get help from somebody to drag the deer out and grab him by his front legs, and somebody else hold his head up off the ground. That way he's not dragging his cape.
Okay.
Because
what did
where
you
they
do?
have their summer coat, I mean, their hair is so thin.
Yeah. What did you do to get him out of the field?
So he was laying probably 10, 15 yards from the field, and I ended up just carrying my stuff out to the edge of the field, and I was gentle enough with him that I picked him up as high as I could and had him by the bases, and I just slowly drug him out to the edge of the field, and then I rode back and got the side-by-side with my buddy that was hunting with me, and we went in and picked him up and took him over to a spot around the field away from that wood lot and gutted him.
Mm.
And then ended up taking him on to the taxidermist that I use here in Springfield. And
so that was nice having that side-by-side there then. Go in there and get him.
Yeah, the side-by-side come in clutch on that. The truck, I could have got the truck in there and picked him up, but having the side-by-side, I mean, it's a little bit easier. That way you don't have to take him out of the side-by-side and put him back in the truck. You can just put the side-by-side on the trailer and leave him in the bed of it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
But ended up taking him on to the taxidermist and getting him caped out, getting him in the freezer, and let them begin their process.
Yeah. So
the one thing you don't want to do with it being hot, shooting a deer, is the cape will start slipping if it's out for a long period of time in hot weather.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to make sure that you take every precaution you can to preserve that cape and the velvet on the deer.
Yeah, because
they do the same thing. They do the same thing with the velvet. They put the skull cap and the antlers in a freezer until they take them and have them freeze dry.
Yeah, because our velvet hunt's real early. It's in August. So you killed that deer the end of August, and then so that roughly gave you 3 weeks, almost a month to prepare for our opening. Probably 3 weeks.
The next day, the third day of the velvet hunt, the wind was better and worked in my favor for me to go back in that spot that I had missed that deer on Friday. And I went in, done the same thing, entry and exit after the hunt. Hung the same tree, seen a lot of deer, but he was a no-show. Mm-hmm. I actually had a really good deer, and I think I sent you the video of him, and you asked me. No, that was later on.
Yeah, I think that was a different one.
No, I had one deer that showed up, and I let him walk.
Yeah.
Because I was so dead set on killing that one deer out of that spot. Mm-hmm. So at that time, the velvet hunt's over with. I start focusing on getting ready for the opening weekend of regular season. I'm not moving any of my cameras. I'm trying just to leave the spots alone, let the cameras do the work, figuring out what I'm going to do as far as going in and hanging hunting and watching the weather. And so opening weekend rolls around, and the deer has shown up every afternoon all week long. I mean, we had talked about it. I had sent you pictures. I'm like, this deer is going to be dead to right come opening day.
Yeah, he was pretty consistent.
I mean, I've never been able to target a mature buck. I mean, I think the deer's 5.5. Mm-hmm. He may be on the 4.5 side, but he's no younger than 4.5.
Yeah.
But being able to target a deer of this caliber and miss him once and him return and start showing up every day again, like, you just don't have that often.
Yeah.
So I'm beginning to wonder, does this deer have 9 lives or am I just getting lucky? So he's showing up every afternoon. I make the plan, opening afternoon, I'm going in there, doing the same thing that I've done. And time rolls around, I get in, hang my set, get settled in, start seeing deer, and, I'm covered up in deer that afternoon. Well, I had a buck come in from behind me, and he worked right around the edge of this woodlot and walked right up underneath me. And I'm sitting there scratching my head like, where is this deer coming from? Mm-hmm. Well, I didn't think to process that the deer may be bedding in that little woodlot. And we're talking 100 yards by 100 yard island in the middle of this field. But it's super, super thick. And there are some drainage ditches in it that are probably 8 to 10 foot deep. And the reason that I know that is because the year prior, my buddy had shot a deer with a rifle, and he ended up going in this island, and we walked down into it and realized what was in it. I mean, it's just a natural deer bed.
Yeah.
So at this point, like, I'm questioning my sanity of, why are you walking around the edge of this and hanging on this?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm flirting with death at this point.
Yeah.
And, all the deer are in the field. This buck's up underneath me. He walks on out in the beans and starts feeding. Well, all the deer start looking back behind me. And I'm like, all right, what are they looking at? I turn to look over my left shoulder, and I'm sitting in a cedar tree, and all I can see is tines. And it's the deer that I am after that I missed on the opening day of the velvet hunt. Jeez. And he's working into this water hole. keep in mind, we have not had any rain up until this week. And we finally got probably, I haven't looked at a rain gauge, but I'm going to say we at least got 2 inches of rain yesterday. And this water hole is completely dry, but these deer are still coming into it and licking the dirt. So I'm trying to figure out if this is like a natural mineral.
Yeah, it might be, huh?
Or, I mean, that's kind of what my assumption is.
So
I don't know if somebody back in the day started a mineral there and it just developed to what it is now, and now it's so big it holds water like a pond.
Yeah, that could very well be. They smell that mineral on the ground for a long time.
Yeah, it's been on the property for a long time because it's fairly large. I think I arranged it, and it's like 30 yards long and I think 15 yards wide.
Yeah, it's a big opening in the middle of the bean field there.
And they've done dirt work in the past 2 years on the field, just taking care of washouts and stuff like that, trying to make it better on the tractors and equipment for the ag. But that one spot, they just haven't done anything with it. And I'm not complaining. They can leave it like it is for all I care.
Yeah. I wonder what it is about, like, that thing where you said all the deer are looking at a certain direction. I see that all the time, too, where when there's going to be another buck coming out, that they'll all be looking back in that direction. But I don't know what's causing them to do that look, because I never hear anything. I don't see anything. It's just that I wonder what sense they're using to locate that deer.
I don't know if it's just them picking up on a bigger, mature deer coming into the area.
Yeah.
I mean, you can watch cattle, and cattle will kind of do the similar thing if there's a bull that's running with them.
Mm-hmm.
If most of the time, I mean, the bulls are separated from the rest of the cattle, so. But I guess it's just the dominance entering the area.
Yeah, they just sense it. It's weird.
But I'm sitting there, and I turn and I see the deer, and he's behind me. So I'm instantly thinking, where did he come from? I'm banking on this deer coming out in front of me because that's where he come out on the velvet hunt. So I'm thinking he's bedded over here. Well, little did I know the deer was bedded in the island that I was sitting in. So I had managed to get around this island without bumping him, which I guess he was just laid up in the bottom of it somewhere. And he comes in, and I range him, and he's right at 50 yards. And I'm like, just be patient, let him do his thing, let him work, and let's see what he does. So the deer's working back and forth in this water hole. He's pushing some does around, and he ends up turning broadside. And when I ranged him again, he was at 48. Well, this is where I go back to talking about practicing with your equipment. Remember, I said I don't have the opportunity to shoot much past 40 in my subdivision, and the only thing I had done was I shot 42 with my bow, with my sight tape set at 42.
Right, yeah.
Well, he is at 48 yards, and I'm like, okay, this is now or never. This deer's not going to get any closer. And he's starting to work through the water hole that's dried out and go up the hill with the beans. So I'm thinking he's fixing to start walking away. I reach up and I just dial my sight tape to 45 because the way I normally shoot my pins is like my 50-yard pin is good from 40 to 50.
Okay.
And then my 60-yard pin is good from 50 to 60. Anything over 50, I'll just go on and run. Like say it's 53. I'll go on and crank it to 60 and just run with it.
Okay.
Well, I hadn't shot this bow over 42 yards. So I'm sitting there banking on making a decision with this sight tape that I don't know if it's going to work or not. So I dial my indicator to 45. I come to full draw. He's broadside. Break the shot. Clean break. And the arrow goes right underneath the deer again. At this point, I am just at a loss for words. I feel like I'm a failure at bow hunting. I'm a failure at shooting a bow. I don't know what I'm doing, and I don't need to be doing this.
Yeah, it's crazy how those feelings all rush back, even though you just killed a good deer like 3 weeks prior.
Yeah, the deer runs to the top of the bean field, probably 15, 20 yards from where I shot him, standing on the wood line, turns around and looks and like just has that look of what was that? I'm like, I've seen this look before. I done it with you a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And, you know, I didn't even attempt to nock another arrow because I wasn't going to fling one in hopes of hitting him and wounding him and not finding him.
Yeah.
So I just set my bow back in the bow holder, and he eased off into the woods, and, you know, he never blew out of the field or nothing like that. So I'm like, okay, this deer's not spooked.
Well, he didn't smell you and he didn't see you. He just knows that something scared him a little bit.
Yeah, he knows something come flying past him and almost got a hold of him, but he don't know what it is.
Yeah, it could have been anything.
And like I said, he goes back in the woods, and I'm sitting there for a few minutes, and some deer that were out in the field when I shot ended up going into the woods as well. Well, they started filtering back out. And I look up, and he walks back out of the woods, and he's walking away from me, but he does come back out of the woods and hits the bean field and walks around the edge of the bean field probably 200 yards nonchalantly, just not a care in the world, doesn't seem spooked.
And he's just feeding?
He's just feeding along the edge of the bean field.
Yeah.
And he ends up cutting into the woods and going up on this ridge. And I know there's a bunch of white oaks up there, and there was also a cornfield that recently just got cut in the last couple of days. So I'm thinking, you know, he may be going over there to bed up. He may just be going to eat. I'm just going to let it be. I'm going to go home. I'm going to figure this out because I've done something wrong that I shouldn't have. End up going home. I'm aggravated with myself, but I talked myself down, and the next morning I got up and I said I need to go somewhere that I can stretch this bow out. I need to check this sight tape because something is not right.
Mm-hmm.
So what I thought was going to be adequate at setting the sight tape at to shoot that deer, I find out was not. I ended up shooting 48 yards with the sight tape set at 45 because I was thinking, you know, there's enough pin gap between where my 40 was versus where I've got it now that 48 yards I should have fell right in.
Okay.
And the theory behind my pin gap and how I shoot the pins, it confuses a lot of people.
Yeah,
but,
I mean, honestly, like I'm sitting here trying to wrap my brain around what you're talking about, and I'm a little bit confused about setting it for 45 to shoot 48.
Well, I didn't think that I was going to have enough drop that it was going to affect the shot.
Okay.
I figured if I held the center of his body that I would have hit him right in the heart.
Oh, okay. So you said at 45 is just use the pin gap or aim a little higher.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I go out, I range 48 yards, I set it back at 45, and I ended up shooting 3 inches low.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, I'm just like, okay, I need to start from scratch. I need to really break into this pin and see what this sight tape is set for. And what I did was I went to 20 and I dialed my indicator to 20. And I'm shooting my runner pin, which is my third pin, at 20 yards because that is the pin that's going to be moving. I shoot at 20, it's 3 inches low. So I'm like, okay, here's where the problem is. This pin is not set for this tape. Where I thought it was at 40, it's not.
Oh, really? Okay.
So I'm shooting 3 inches low. I made an adjustment on it and shot again at 20, dead center. I backed out to 30. I set it to 30, dead center. Backed out to 40, set it at 40, dead center. Then I got into the 50 and 60. I've done the same thing at 50 and 60, dead center.
Okay. So
now
went.
I figured out that this pin has not been right the whole time.
Yeah. So you had to go back and you ran that slider pin through your entire sight tape, basically.
I did.
Okay. Yeah, because I run a 5-pin slider myself, and I do kind of a hybrid where the 5th pin is 60, and then I'll dial in like 70 and 80 and just kind of make sure that it slides up there. But I haven't done what you've done and adjusted it to run that slider through all of the different distances. So I might go back and do that myself and see how that works.
It really helps to see if the sight tape is true all the way through.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you can get it to shoot 20 to 60 and every one of them is dead center, then you know at 100 yards that tape's going to be spot on.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
So, I mean, it just comes down to me not taking the time and working through this bow and knowing its full potential and more or less winging it and thinking that I had it right. And confusing myself and confusing everybody else when I was telling them the story of what I had it set at and why I did what I did. And I thought it was going to be enough pin gap. Like, I didn't know the tape.
Yeah, you just got...
And I didn't have the pin set to the tape.
Just kind of got complacent with your stuff, figuring that you know it. Yeah.
Well, let's threw it together and thought it was good enough. And, I mean, that's not me. I don't normally do that, but this year I just didn't have my head where it should have been, and it cost me twice.
Yeah. You working on your own stuff, or you do pro shop stuff?
So I work on all my stuff. I just prefer to do it myself. I have certain things that I like to do in certain ways. I've got a buddy that owns a shop, and I can go in and use his equipment. And then I've got some stuff at my house that I can use if the shop's closed. And I started doing that a couple of years ago just because, you know, it's one of those deals where if you're out west or something, or you're away from a shop and something breaks, you need to know how to fix it.
Yeah, I got big into tuning and doing my own stuff about probably about 4 years ago now. And it all became from I basically was a dumbass and was trying to hang my bag up in a tree. And in the process, knocked my bow off the rack, and it fell. And then so I had to take it to a pro shop, and some stuff had to get replaced. Well, it was the rut, and they're busy, and so I can't get my bow back for, 2 weeks that year. And then so for 2 weeks, I just didn't have a bow during the rut, and I was like, no, this will never happen again. So now I have a spare bow, and now I just have a press and all that stuff at my home, and if something needs to be changed, I can do it just right then and there,
Yeah, I enjoy working on them. I have helped a buddy in a shop that used to own a shop. He no longer has it anymore. But after doing that, I just decided to start working on my own stuff. I felt like it was a need to know in like situations of something happening to it when you're out hunting and you're not near a shop, or a shop's closed and it's the weekend and you've messed up something on it, like a D-loop break or the serving break on your peep. Just knowing that little stuff, and I mean, it goes a long way.
Yeah, just being able to be self-reliant, not having to rely on somebody else for your season,
Yeah, so going into the next day, like I've done figured all this stuff out the following day of opening day, and where it's Sunday, the second day of season. Figured this bow out. I'm comfortable. I'm not mad at myself anymore. Like I'm ready to do this.
Mm-hmm.
I get back in there, same spot, and I know me and you had been texting, and I started seeing deer early that afternoon. And the first deer that I seen was a buck that was actually bedded in that island. He was bedded on the edge of it, and I had managed to walk past him, and he was just laid up in some stuff to where I couldn't see anything. He had his head down, but when I walked past him to walk in and get in my tree, I stepped on a limb, and as I stepped on it, he heard me and picked his head up and seen me. He got up, hopped down in the little island, and I only heard him make probably 2 or 3 jumps, but he never blew. And I'm like, okay, I didn't booger the deer. He probably don't know what I was, and I'm just gonna keep on working my way in. Get in the tree, and I think I ended up texting you, and I was sitting there, and I looked over my left shoulder, and it's creeping up on 5 o'clock, and all I see is a rat coming across the field to my left. And it's this deer that I had camera pictures of, and I had told myself I was going to let the deer walk because I'm trying to shoot the mature 4.5+ year old deer. And this deer is just a solid 8. He's real wide. He's probably 18 inches wide. And he come in inside 50, and I'm sending you a video of him, and I think you're like, well, why aren't you shooting this deer?
Yeah, he's a nice deer.
But I mean, he's a really pretty deer, but I think he's got a lot of potential if he can live to next year. And you know, I'm thinking I'm already devoted to killing this deer. I'm got to stay persistent. I want to kill this deer. This is the only deer I'm going to shoot. So having that one tag that's gone, like the next one, that's it for Tennessee. So let's make it count.
Yeah, exactly.
This deer walks off. He goes on, eats the beans, ends up going back in the timber. End up start having some does come out and smaller bucks. Well, the 8-pointer that had come in, and I'd already passed him once, he decided to come in again. And you know, at this point, I'm like, this deer is really taunting me. And I thought long and hard about it. I was like, I can't do it.
Yeah.
So going through the afternoon, see a bunch of deer, a bunch of little bucks, that one mature 8, and the 9 never shows. So, you know, I'm like, okay, well, we'll pack out and we'll go on to the house, and next time I can come in here, we'll just see if we can see him. So it was Wednesday. I was able to get a break in the afternoon and get out early from work, and I slipped in, and as soon as I slipped in, I got one stick hung on the tree, went to climb up to hang the other one. I looked over my shoulder, and I've already got deer entering the field. It's 4 o'clock.
Oh, wow.
The combine's running on the other side of the timber. I'm thinking,
for the
tonight
corn?
might be the night.
Okay, so
we've got a full moon. It's actually peaking today at 100%.
So that combine's combining the corn over there, and it's pushing them towards you in the soybeans?
Yeah, he's combining the neighboring cornfield that's on the other side of the timber, and these deer are just starting to filter out. So I'm thinking either A, he's pushing them out of the corn, or B, he's just pushing them out of the timber off the neighbors onto me. And end up sitting there, and how many was it? I had 3 bucks that ended up coming out of the southwest corner of the island that I was sitting in. So now my wheels are really starting to turn. Like, these deer really are bedding in this island, and I'm managing to skirt the edge of it and get in and not blow them out. I've got 3 bucks in the back of the field, so we're at 6 right there. And then I had 4 more that come out across from me, so we're at 10. And I've got 10 or 15 does in the field, and we're getting close to the end of the afternoon. It's starting to get dark. It's creeping up. I'm like, this deer's not going to show. And he was on camera that morning, but it was super, super early, and he was coming back out of the bean field going to bed. So I had a feeling he was bedded back where he was when he come out at the velvet hunt. There's a ridge that's butted up to this thick stuff where they cut in the timber, and I'm thinking, maybe he'll show up. Well, I'd already texted the neighbor, and I was texting you. I was like, this deer's not showing up. I don't know where he's at. And I'm asking the neighbor, have you got pictures of him yet? And he said, I haven't had a picture of him since the last Friday. And I look down, and I'm texting him, and I look up, and here he comes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So we're talking 15 minutes before dark, and he's deciding to step out in the field. He's the last deer out, and he's coming with this 8-pointer that he was running with on the opening afternoon of regular season. Well, they enter the beans, and they start working my direction, and I'm thinking, all right, this is going to go down. It's going to happen tonight. Well, the deer ends up staying out in the middle of the beans, and I've got does all around me inside 30 yards. They're feeding on the beans. They're looking back at him. All these other little bucks are looking at him, and they're not wanting to get anywhere near him. He's eyeing the other deer, and he's just doing his thing. So he ends up working out in the middle of this bean field with this other buck that he come out with, and they just fed until it got so dark I couldn't see. And the moon was already coming up, and it was real bright. I could tell that I still had deer in this water hole. My camera's going off. My phone's buzzing in my pocket. So I'm just sitting there like, how am I going to get out of this place? Like, I don't want to blow it to smithereens. This deer's here. He showed up again. This is the 5th night that I've set this tree since season opened in the velvet hunt, and I've seen him 3 out of 5 nights.
Wow, that's incredible.
And I'm processing, like, what can I do next? What is my next move? Can I get any closer? And I think I'm at the peak of I've just got to wait on this deer to make a move and give me another opportunity, because if I get any closer, I'm afraid I'm going to blow him off his bed.
Yeah. Well, how are those beans looking? Are they still green? Or are they turning yellow at all or anything?
This field is the youngest beans around.
Okay, that's nice.
They were planted in the 1st of July. So they are really late beans, and they are still pounding them.
Okay, well, that's good.
They haven't started to turn yet. They're still pretty green. I would say probably in the next week to 2 weeks, they're going to start to really turn. I think we've got a cold front coming in the week after next. I think it's next weekend it's supposed to start.
I think next weekend.
Yeah, from what I looked at, the temperatures are supposed to go from being in the mid-80s next week to next weekend's high is like 68 or 70, and then the lows are dipping into the low 40s.
Man, that'll be nice.
So I'm looking forward to that.
So just like, not to get into great detail, but are you kind of already formulating a plan of if you have to move off this bean field, like if the beans just aren't producing anymore or they get harvested?
If I start seeing him move off the beans and not show up on a regular like he has been, then I'm going to have to get aggressive. I'm going to have to make a move on him in the timber some way, somehow. It's not going to be fun. It's not going to be easy. But I'm trying to figure that out by looking at the map. And
yeah,
I mean, it's a kind of a waiting game right now, because, with all this rain that we just had yesterday, I didn't really have any activity yesterday afternoon when the rain moved out. So I've always been told, the day after, like 24 hours after a front, that the deer will really move.
Yeah.
So I'm going back in tonight, and I'm going to give it another shot and see what happens tonight and see if I can figure something out. If if I have to make a move this weekend before the patterns change, I mean, I'm going to get aggressive with it, but I'm trying not to be too aggressive at the point of just ruining it.
Yeah, you're just trying to be a little bit conservative because it's, it's a private land piece, so you kind of got to be and kind of just working your way from the outside in.
Yeah, I mean, it's early. Season just started.
Yeah.
It's private land. Like, I'm not having to worry about somebody else. The only person I'm worried about getting an opportunity at him is the neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
But just looking at their entry and exit, I mean, it's a lot sketchier than what I'm doing. And I mean, it could benefit me. I mean, I'm not, if he kills the deer, I'll be proud for him. I'll go help him, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, like, I don't want it to screw him either.
Yeah.
I've tried to help him, like, think about some things and process elimination and understand what could go wrong if he done this or done that. And I mean, he's looking at all those options, and he plays the wind like I do. And
good.
I mean, there's some things that you just can't prevent.
Yeah, and
walking into timber, because he's hunting in timber on his side.
Yeah.
But it's open. I mean, walking into that, I mean, you don't know what you're walking into until you step in it.
Yeah. Well, I think at the end of the day, I think you're going to be really happy that you didn't end up taking that other deer the other day because, I've shot deer that I've regretted shooting kind of afterwards, but I don't think I've ever not shot a deer and regretted it later. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, that was a hard thing to do.
Yeah, but now
I'm
he's
proud of myself for doing it.
Yeah,
because that's the first really good deer like that I've let walk.
Yeah,
and in my entire career of hunting. Because I mean, like I said, I'm all for somebody shooting a good deer
mm-hmm.
and being happy with it. And if I would have killed him, I would have been happy.
Yeah, but you got your target buck, the one you want,
Yeah, like I've got history with this deer. I've got a story with this deer.
Yeah.
That I'm chasing.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, if I kill him, like, that's going to mean something to me. It's going to be bittersweet.
Yeah, it's going to be something.
Now, if it comes down to it and I kill him and it's over with, it's probably going to suck because it's been such a good story with him. And I've had so much fun chasing him.
Yeah, and it's something special,
Like, this deer's put me on a roller coaster.
Yeah. Well, Derrick.
Yeah, I'm gonna get back in this afternoon. I mean, it's 75 degrees today, and I think the wind's pretty good for that spot. So,
well, definitely keep me posted. I'm excited to hear about following along on the journey with it.
Oh, I'll do it.
Okay.
I appreciate you having me on, and maybe we can do it again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Get a part 2, and maybe next time I'll have the deer on the ground.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll do a couple weeks, like a mid-season check-in again, and see how everything's going. Okay.
All right, sounds good.
All right. Well, good talking again, Derrick.
All right, buddy.
I'll see you.